Hi y'all, we're back digging in with Gardenstead, and we've roped Aaron back in because we have more questions for you, Aaron. We just can't get enough. We're picking the brain.
I'm glad.
You were here last time we talked about outdoor gardening.
Yep.
Now, slight season change, we're getting into thinking about winterizing our gardens. And so we've accumulated a whole bunch of stuff that our community wants to know about.
Awesome.
And I'm just gonna jump in.
Okay,
If
sweet.
you're all good and ready, warmed
I'm ready,
up.
let's do it.
A general purpose question for you. What should we be doing to prep our gardens for winter? Some of your expert advice.
Expert advice would be add organic matter. So basically something I've always done, like a lot of people will throw their lawn clippings like on their front lawn basically in bags and send them away. But that is amazing fertilizer for your garden beds. So you should be taking like any lawn clippings that you have, any, organic matter, which is going to be leaf debris or, plant matter that has fallen in your garden over time and started decomposing. Just throw all that on your garden beds.
Garden bedders?
Garden bedders. And I would sometimes just take like my lawnmower and just like run it over everything to like chop it all up really fine, because the finer it is, the more easily it's going to break down. Exactly,
yes.
yeah. So yeah, that is the key for winter prep, is going to be adding organic matter in the form of, just anything that you have around your property. Throw it in your garden beds, because that's going to re-amend it with beautiful nutrition. And feed the microbes over the winter as well, so they have a source of food.
Right, so any of your fall pruning, keep all of that.
Yeah.
That can all go in.
100%, yeah. Compost for sure. And then you can use granular amendments like kelp meal and alfalfa meal, like we've said, and minerals. So you can buy like ground minerals as well. That's a great addition because all that will decompose over the winter time. The great thing about when it snows is that basically protects everything underneath, so that your soil is still very active during the winter. So it's decomposing. Once that snow melts, it's going to be like beautiful, rich organic matter and humus or humus. I guess
and
not
hummus.
Hummus. It's gonna turn to hummus.
Hummus and pitas. What else did we say
humus?
wrong? Hummus and pitas, and we just said something else wrong. I love it.
Some bedders, garden bedders.
Yeah. Garden bedders, that was it.
But yeah, so yeah, organic matter, compost, get some minerals back in there, and that'll be kind of your best friend. A lot of people will grow also a winter cover crop, so you can grow things like winter rye, which will kind of grow through a portion of the winter season. That'll kind of help feed the microbes in the soil as well.
It's another alternative to the snow insulation that you get.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I would do, if you really want to go the next step, is cover crops, like getting something that can kind of grow through a portion of the winter, because the more root mass that you have in the soil through that season as well, the more activity that the microbes will be able to do. So yeah.
Leveling up. You level up with
all your organic matter, all your nutrients that can break down over the winter. And then, your bonus step would be getting some cover crop.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we're going to get people like your answers to pest questions. So we're getting into pests again.
Cool.
Aaron loves pests.
I do.
Do pests overwinter in the garden?
Yes, they will.
That's too bad.
They will, yeah, it is. One thing you can do, which I've seen some people do, is if they have, like you've got kind of your mulch layering, you've got your organic matter on there, pests will hide in that during the winter. So what some people will do is like, basically once it gets really cold out, pull kind of that organic matter off, or that mulch layer, expose the top layer of your soil to basically the freezing temperatures. Yeah, so freezing temperatures are great at killing pests actually. Some will kind of like burrow in where it's more insulated from the snow. So by kind of like mixing that mulch layer up a little bit, you kind of disperse them, and then they'll basically die from the freezing temperatures.
Exposing them to the cold.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's tough because some pests are pests for certain plants, but they're actually beneficial for other plants. Some pests will eat other pests on your plants. So I don't know, it's more about building kind of like an established ecosystem than kind of worrying about pests, but they are an issue. So if you want to kind of help that process of killing those pests through the cold, then you kind of got to like stir that mulch layer up a little bit.
So pests can die in the cold. What about
Yep.
plant diseases? What about the bad fungus?
Mm-hmm.
Does all of that get killed off with extreme temperatures too?
Yes, it will. Yeah, extreme heat and extreme cold, for the most part, it will. Yeah, the only issue is that like soil is pretty well insulated during the winter, so it's not going to get cold enough to kill a lot of things.
Right.
But yeah, so things will survive. Like they're so adaptable. Things are meant to survive through harsh conditions because that's just, the way living organisms are. They adapt. So yeah, they will survive through the winter for sure.
Okay. How do you, and this is something I have to do when I go home, how do you properly dispose of a diseased plant?
Yes. It's tough.
Mine's sitting inside a plastic bag right now.
Yeah. So yeah, you can do that. Like you throw it in a black bag and like leave it in the sun and basically bake it. You could bury it. That is one option. It'll just kind of decompose.
Oh, look at you and your ecosystems.
I
Yes.
know, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would probably just bury it.
Okay.
That's the one thing I would do, yeah.
Not just, I was going to put it in a black bag, pretend that it wasn't a dead plant in
Yeah.
my black bag, and just sneak it down the elevator and
Yeah.
into the.
Well, that's another option, yeah.
Bin.
Like you could just throw on some gloves, put it in a bag, throw it in the garbage, then it's gone.
Okay, next category,
Yeah.
soil solarization.
Okay.
Can you tell me a top line on what soil solarization is? And
Yes.
can you say soil solarization 5 times really fast?
Soil solarization.
Thank you for
It's a hard one.
trying.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so it's basically heating your soil up to a certain temperature using the sun to basically pasteurize it. So what you're doing is you're making sure your soil is moist. Then you're applying plastic to the top of it or something to keep that heat in. And you're exposing it to the sun for a period of 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the temperature and the season. And that ideally is going to pasteurize your soil to kill pathogens and pests.
So why would we do that? We love critters in our soil. Why would we want to essentially deaden our soil?
For sure, yeah. Yeah, thankfully, like with pasteurization, it's not sterilizing it. So, especially with microbes, like pretty much most of your beneficial microbes are going to survive pasteurization temperatures where most of the pathogens are going to die off, which is great.
Which is what you want.
That's
right.
what you want, yep. And then for pests, it's ideally we don't want any pests on our plants, but it has to kind of shift more towards a balance of, what pests are good, what pests are bad. So when you get rid of all of them, you're almost kind of fighting against nature because now you're, if one of those pests was preventing another pest from taking hold of your plants, now those are both gone and another one can kind of just come in and take over with no
You've disrupted
natural predators.
the whole system.
Yeah, exactly. So I like soil solarization happens all the time. If you look at farmers' fields, like most people, a lot of them are covering their rows with plastic. And what that's doing is increasing the soil temperature, and it's actually very harmful for plants. So it's not ideal. It's not what I would do, I don't think. And I don't think our climate is suited for soil solarization because you have to do it during the hottest months of the year. And the hottest months of the year here, you're growing things, right? Like you're not gonna just try and kind of pasteurize your soil during July when all of your plants are
1
kind
month.
of doing things. So yeah, so I don't think it's super applicable to our climate.
Now, I have heard of lots of houseplant lovers who bake their soil in the oven sometimes to
Yep.
repurpose it and reuse it again. Same theory, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I've done it before. You just basically take like a turkey bag or some oven-safe bag, seal it all up, make sure it's moist as well. There has to be water content. It can't be dry. Same with soil solarization. Like it won't work if your soil is dry. So yeah, if you had a house plant, you want to reuse the soil, wrap it in a turkey bag or oven-safe bag, wrap it in tin foil, bake it at the lowest setting for, an hour, a couple hours, and it'll basically pasteurize that soil to be reusable.
Okay, lowest setting for a couple hours.
Yeah, you only
It's like
need...
making a pavlova.
What's a pavlova?
It's meringue, a meringue.
Okay. You got a low
Anyway.
temperature for that one?
Yeah, and then
Okay.
you low temperature, and then you turn off the heat source
Yeah.
and keep it in your oven.
Okay.
And that's the magical trick on a
Yeah.
pavlova to
Just
make it
basically like making a pavlova then.
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and then yeah, what you want to do after that is kind of reestablish, some healthy microbes again. Like they will survive. The only issue is most ovens will only go down to like 190, so you may end up kind of killing some of the beneficials too at that point. But yeah, it's a great way to reuse soil, especially like commercial soil, because they can be full of stuff that you don't want in your houseplants.
Got it. We've had feedback from our community, a lot of people struggling with squash vine borers. Does wood soil sterilize, soil,
Pasteurization or
soil
solarization.
solarization work to get rid of squash vine borers?
I believe it would, but it's pretty variable because it has to be the perfect temperatures to basically kill like up to a certain point, right? So like if your temperatures aren't high enough during the summer, or you don't do it at the right time, or like there's a gap of heat within the 4 to 6 weeks that you actually have to do this process for, then it's not gonna heat deep enough to actually get rid of a lot of pests.
Right.
So
So there may be a better
it'd be pretty
way
hit
to
and miss.
tackle their squash vine borers.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be a better way for sure. Like I would say diatomaceous earth is the best way. That's going to keep kind of any pest like that off. And yeah, you don't want your soil to heat up. Like soil is supposed to be a cooling buffer for plants. That's what they want to grow in to protect themselves from the sun. So yeah, I think
Okay.
yeah,
We're moving on from soil solarization then.
cool.
Mulch.
Yes.
When do we apply mulch? We're learning that mulch, I think, from what you've said today, we can put mulch on whenever we want to put mulch on.
Yes. Yeah. Right away.
All the time.
Yes. Never leave your soil exposed.
How much mulch would you recommend? How deep the mulch should be for vegetable beds?
Probably 2 to 3 inches. I would say if you want to suppress weeds, like definitely 3 inches, because you got to make sure that they're not going to germinate within that medium.
Okay, mulch. We're going to move on from mulch. I feel like we've talked mulch. Cover crops.
Yes, cover crops are amazing. Highly recommend them, especially if you don't want to deal with weeds, because you can basically plant something like clover, which is very evasive in a way. So it's going to take over your entire garden bed.
Thyme.
Yeah, thyme is great.
Yep.
Oregano is very invasive. We have it all over our lawn. But yeah, things like that, like you almost add something specific to prevent anything that you don't want coming into your garden.
Right.
The benefits of cover crop is that, grass is essential for the healthy development of other plants. And grass has been demonized for a very long time because farmers think that, other plants or weeds or grass is stealing nutrients from the crop they're growing,
Right.
which just isn't true. It's protecting the soil from erosion. It's protecting the soil from the sun, which ends up killing a lot of the microbes that are in the soil. So yeah, it's essential for the healthy development of the soil itself. And then the thing as well is that microbes have created relationships with roots. So plants will use photosynthesis to produce sugars and different substances that they secrete from the roots, which feeds biology in the soil, which in turn feeds your plants. So the more roots that you have growing around your plants, the more microbial activity is happening and the more food can actually be available to the plants that you are growing or that you want to develop. And that's essential for pest control, disease control. It's going to retain more moisture in your growing medium as well. If your soil is exposed, it's just going to dry out all the time.
Yeah.
But
Same
if you have
purpose as a
grass-
mulch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the benefit of like the microbial increase.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have more access to your plants or more access to nutrients. The great thing about clover is it's a legume, and legume attracts a nitrogen fixing bacteria that can convert nitrogen from the air into usable nitrogen in the soil. So you're basically increasing the amount of nitrogen that your plant can get by having a weed on your soil.
Got it. How different cover crops excel in different regions. How would someone go about finding the best cover crop for their growing region?
Yeah, it really depends where you are. Like I think in Canada, like barley, rye, clover are definitely most common. Any kind of legumes. So it really depends like where you're located, what kind of like a native plant to that area would be, I guess. That would be a natural cover crop. So definitely do some research on kind of like what that would be for your area.
Natives.
Yeah,
That's a good
like,
direction.
Ideally, like native plants would be, I don't know if, I'm assuming like rye and barley and stuff like that would be a native plant to Canada, but I could be completely wrong on that. So yeah, do some research on it, and then depending on like the season, you plant different ones. So, you know, like a winter rye would be like
Okay, I
for your
didn't know
winter
that.
season.
Yeah.
Because it's more tolerant to the cold. Your clover and things like that would be more geared towards your spring and summer and fall. So yeah, it depends on the season and like what you want to achieve. Some cover crops will have a deeper root mass, so they will penetrate deeper into the soil to help break it up. So yeah, really depends on what you want to achieve.
Okay, our community is asking about soil amendments. Is there a soil amendment that's good to add to garden soil in the fall?
Yeah, definitely. So a soil amendment is basically just like anything that's going to increase the health and vitality of your soil that you're adding to it, to either increase the organic matter content, the nutrient content. So that's pretty much all an amendment is. And yeah, I love using, you know, compost is a soil amendment, kelp meal, alfalfa meal, which you've mentioned a bunch, is a soil amendment, bone meal, feather meal. All of that stuff is a soil amendment that's going to add to the nutritional value of your soil and just kind of replenish it. Yeah.
Now, bone meal, lots of people use when planting bulbs. Do we need to have bone meal mixed in when we're planting bulbs in the fall?
You don't need to. It's like not a bad idea, because you're basically providing a nutrient right away when the bulb is basically rooting. So yeah, if you wanted to, like, yeah, 100%, you can just kind of mix it into the soil that you're planting the bulb into. Make sure you don't put it on it directly, because it can burn the roots when they start to develop. But yeah, providing like any source of nutrition to a plant that's going to be developing is not a bad idea at all. And yeah, like ideally, you keep adding those things to your soil year after year so that you don't have to amend as often. You're just kind of adding organic matter to feed the soil, and those nutrients are just available.
That's the goal.
That's the goal, yeah.
That's what we're all working towards.
For sure. But yeah, it doesn't hurt to give them a boost.
One last question for you
Yep.
before we go. What are the 3 gardening tasks that we should be doing outdoors in the fall?
In the fall, put your leaves back on the soil. Just keep that organic matter on there. Plant some cover crops is a great idea. And
Winterized. Done.
yeah,
Done
pretty
and
much.
dusted.
Yeah, cover crops, organic matter. You're pretty much done with that. Yeah, I think a third one.
We can
would
only
be-
have 2. If there's 2 really good winners, I'll let you away with 2.
Yeah, I think those are probably the best.
That's my takeaway from this discussion.
Yeah.
Cover crops, compost, compost, compost.
Yeah, that's the key. That's how Mother Nature's been growing plants. So just recreating that is the way to grow plants.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time and expertise, Aaron.
Anytime. Thanks for picking my brain.
Next time, I know exactly what I want to talk to you about. Compost.
Okay, amazing.
See you next time on the podcast, and good luck with your winter prep, everybody.